Hello, everybody, and welcome to Common Running Mistakes. My name is Dr. Cameron Garber. I'm here with one of our awesome therapists here at Body Smart Melody. We are coming to you today to talk about a common running mistake that a lot of people make, and which is under or overfeeding themselves. If you've had problems with your running nutrition and just nutrition in general, I want to hear from you. So say food in the comments down below. It's always hard to pick which word to have you say. Drop food in the comments down below and tell us, share with us a little bit more about some of the struggles you may have had or questions you might have about how to make sure that you're balancing out your nutrition properly for running and just for life in general. One of the things we do here at Body Smart to help people out with that is we do metabolic testing to find out how you should be eating in terms of number of calories and what to do for each run to replenish the calories that you just burned off. So we find out exactly how many calories you burned so that we can make sure that you're getting enough back. Okay, so that all being said, drop food in the comments down below if you have any questions or if you've struggled with that before. But it's a big topic, don't you think? Like knowing how many calories to eat for an athlete.
And I want to say it's especially big for women. I feel like women
agreed.
think about what they're eating a lot more than men do.
Yeah, men kind of just plow through it. Men's bodies tend to be a little bit more forgiving there too, that if they're being active, kind of doesn't matter as often how many calories they're getting as long as they're getting enough, that they kind of do fine. We pay for it later in like heart disease and testicular cancer or things like that. but those types of things, men's bodies tend to be a little bit more resilient, unfortunately. I guess it's good for me. It's unfair to women, for sure. But that type of a thing where you can kind of eat what you want when you're running is true up to a point that usually catches up to you eventually.
You can't outrun a bad diet.
Right. Absolutely not. And usually kind of in your, mid to late 30s or 40s, it starts to catch up with you where you can't just eat whatever you want. And so getting your nutrition dialed in is really important, and knowing how many calories to eat is important. Like you mentioned with women, they've really found that under eating, so not getting enough calories, is really associated with a lot of the running injuries that people get. So especially bone stress injuries are really closely tied in with calories. And so that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. I actually just recently learned that I was not eating enough, and I didn't really realize it. But I will admit, I kind of got caught up in, I'm losing weight, I'm getting skinny. This is exciting, right?
Yeah.
And I just wasn't eating enough. And I went back and looked at, I've done quite a few metabolic tests, and I went back and looked at my results and realized that my RMR was lower every single time.
Yeah.
And I got my own running coach and realized, she pointed out to me that that's going to slow down your metabolism and it's going to mess with your hormones. And I just realized, I need to eat more. And I have been eating more. My goal is to get my RMR back up a little bit. And I do feel better. I feel like I just did a big race a few months ago, and it's been taking me a long time to recover, and I just couldn't figure out why. And I think it's because I wasn't eating enough. And it's funny because, I teach this to other runners. I didn't realize that I was doing it to myself.
Yeah.
So it's important to be self-aware. So
and having an external coach sometimes can really be helpful.
Absolutely. It's that huge.
Yeah, it gives you that outside perspective.
Exactly, yeah. So anyways, I'm eating more, and I feel like my running is finally starting to feel normal again. I feel like I'm not as angry and irritable.
That's good.
And I don't,
We've noticed it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm teasing. I'm totally teasing. But it really is true. It makes a big difference in how you can recover. Your injury risk goes way down when you are getting enough food. And so really important that we balance that out. I was totally teasing.
I know. Or were you?
No, I totally was. Okay. So how do you know, though? One of the best ways, honestly, and I'm biased, but is getting that RMR test. That really does help to find out how many calories I shouldn't eat less than, so that we're making sure we get enough and that we're replenishing the carbohydrate calories. That's another key thing that we learned from the exercise test, the exercise VO2 test, is how many calories you're burning at each stage along the way. So you can make sure that you're replacing the carbohydrate calories. It's okay to not replace all of the fats depending on where you're at. So if you're trying to lose weight, we don't want to replace the fat. But because we have such a small reservoir of carbohydrate, we wind up having to replace those carbs that we burn off. And so we wind up cycling through the same calories we just burned off, and then we eat them back, and we burn them off and eat them back, and we don't really lose weight. And a lot of runners get frustrated that they're not losing weight if that's one of their running goals. And so getting that dialed in really is important. And so making sure that you're not running too hard to where you're always burning carbohydrate and not burning really very much fat. And so dialing in your paces and your intensity levels. So with your heart rate zones or however you want to manage that, making sure that you're not running too hard so that you're burning what you intend to burn with your workouts and building your endurance, as well as making sure you're training hard enough so that you're improving in performance and speed and tuning up the machine. Like you mentioned, it's going to slow down your RMR. If we train too slow too often, it can slow down our RMR and not give our body the cue to go fast. So you have to run fast enough, often enough, that you're keeping yourself tuned up, but slow enough, often enough to really improve your fat burning potential.
Kind of a tricky balance.
It is a tricky balance.
Metabolic testing is awesome.
Yeah.
You need to find a balance between listening to your body and also looking at the numbers, right? You don't want to go too extreme either way. But anyways, metabolic test is really helpful. And
yeah, you definitely have to listen to your body, because there's times where the numbers aren't adding up, and it's just because of, whatever. Right. Menstrual cycles can be a big thing that throws a kink in the works there. Coming down, fighting off a cold or a flu or something like that you don't really know about, but your body may be doing work in the background. And so listening to your body is super important too, as well as all the different numbers, that we can chart and graph and pace and look at. It's important to listen to your body as well.
So question.
Yeah.
How do you manage your RMR? If you if you see that your RMR is coming down because you're not eating enough, how do you get it back up?
Yeah, so that's a really actually interesting question. When you mentioned that your RMR had dropped, some of that's fairly normal, because as we lose weight, there's less body to take care of. And so our RMR will drop a little bit as we lose weight. So that's normal and can be expected. We just don't want it to drop too much relative to our body size, right? And to where it was before. So the things that we can do to maintain our RMR, one is strength training. That's huge. Mm-hmm. Keeping the muscles tuned up so that they're calling for more calories to be able to do more work. Really, really important. So keeping the muscles strong, super important. Number two, and probably actually number one, really the most important thing or fastest way you can increase your metabolism is just eat more food.
So how do you eat more food without gaining weight? It's
the type of food. Avoid high calorie but low nutrition foods. So white breads. Yeah, McDonald's. Okay. Right. So yeah, a lot of your processed foods, a lot of your white breads, white starches like white rice, it is fine-ish, right? Depends on how much you're having and stuff like that. But then things like noodles and pastas and stuff like that. So be careful with breads, pastas, pizza, Italian food, essentially. Be careful with, because it tastes so good. Be careful with that, though, to not do too much in those simple starches, but that have kind of low nutritional value. So really increase your load of vegetables and lean protein, and that will help you increase your metabolism as much as anything.
So would you say it's better to eat junk food or it's better to eat nothing?
Yeah, that's tough. Depends on how junky the junk food is. On a day-to-day basis, as a lifestyle, I would say it's probably better to eat junk food than to die. But on a for this one meal, skipping that one meal and eating a little bit later, as long as that's not a pattern, if it's a one-time thing, yeah, you're better off just not eating then than eating something that's you're gonna pay for later in some way, shape, or form.
What if it was like right before a run? Say you have a big run in the evening, you forgot your lunch at home. Maybe I've done this a few times.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Do you junk and go on a run, or do you run like in a fasted state?
Yeah, some of that depends on personal preference. Some of that depends on personal tolerance. So some people, if they go on a run in a fasted state, especially in the afternoon, they're gonna bonk and bonk hard. Right? Mm-hmm. They're going to feel really low blood sugar, really depleted. And so they're not going to have a good run. And so they may as well either not run or have a little bit of something just to maintain your blood sugar is fine. That would be fine to do. And we've kind of all probably done that before. So like, yeah, is it eat this Snickers or don't run? The health benefit would probably be better from the run than the negative effect of the whatever. Yeah,
that
the
makes
junk
sense.
food.
So
Yeah.
it really depends on the situation.
Right. And how much you're having and stuff like that. But so, I mean, in the end, like eating McDonald's once is not going to kill you. Eating McDonald's regularly will, right? And sorry for calling out McDonald's, but fast food or junk food, right? That will kill you long term. We know that. Like, it's scientifically proven.
Mm-hmm.
But eating that every so often isn't like such a big deal. Is it a good pattern to get in? Can we plan our life so that doesn't happen? Yes. So should we be working towards that? Yes. But when that happens, is that okay? Yes. Like, it's not a big deal that you should be stressing over. Just try to see what you can do to make changes to set that up differently so that you don't run into that same problem consistently. A one-time thing, no big deal. Pattern, that's what we want to avoid, is unhealthy patterns in our life.
That makes sense. I have one more question.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who, like marathon runners, who eat a dozen donuts before their race? You know, like, you've heard those things,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? What are your thoughts on that? A lot of people they are like, it helps. I would not be able to do my marathon without this. This is the trick to my PR, right?
Yeah. I mean, if it works for you, I guess it works for you. It's probably, again, not a healthy pattern, and you should try to maybe play around with other foods that give you kind of that same sugar boost and that same high or whatever that maybe are healthier choices. But, you know, what works for them works for them. If they're training for a marathon and are fit enough, it's probably not going to have a huge long-term effect. Although there are runners all the time that wind up with heart disease and other things because they feel like, well, I can eat whatever I want because I run. And that doesn't always bear out. So the problem with high carbohydrate foods, high sugar foods like flour and, you know, refined corn syrup and stuff like that, is that they are very hard on your internal organs, in particular your blood vessels. So they are very oxidative, meaning they change the shape of molecules inside your bloodstream. And so that's what hardens your arteries and causes that atherosclerosis, and also what hardens the fats in your arteries and causes the plaques. And so having a high sugar diet or high refined carbohydrate diet like flour and sugar, that will just cause those things to harden. So even though you're exercising and doing all those right things, it can still be hardening your arteries inside of an otherwise healthy body. And we see that all the time, where relatively healthy people and quite fit people sometimes wind up with heart disease and heart attacks. There's a genetic component to that as well, but diet definitely plays a big factor. And so we can't just eat whatever we want and run. So darn it.
Bummer.
But, you know, a one-time thing for a race, again, that's probably not going to kill you. It's probably going to be fine. But if you can find more natural, more healthy ways of doing that same thing, getting that carbo load or whatever you want to call that, and that helps you as an individual runner, great. Figure that out and see if there's a healthier option.
That makes sense.
Making sure that you're getting that calorie amount right, though, is really, really important. We don't want to overdo it or underdo it so that we're kind of sabotaging all of our effort. If you're putting forth the effort, don't sabotage it. So, yeah, especially with women, I think that's a big, big topic, to make sure that you're getting enough calories. That can be hard psychologically to want to do, but really is critical to avoid injury and other problems. And that's one of the common running mistakes that we see, is that people kind of blow themselves up by not fueling their body appropriately. So if you've had problems with that, again, let us know. Let us know your questions and everything in the comments down below. Thanks so much for joining us on Common Running Mistakes. Important topic here. Hopefully that was helpful to you. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.